If you're just trying to make more cells, cancer's the answer. Right? Cancer does a great job, left unchecked. But if you're trying to, be a cohesive being across time, cancer's probably not going to help you that much. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Probably won't. It'll probably harm you. What I'm saying is, how are we going to look at this thing? Well, I was suffering a lot. I still am. We always are. We're people, right? But I was really going through it. Even in that space, seemingly relatively on my own, had the job. Job was stable. Loved the job. At times, loved the job. At times, felt mildly connected to people. At times, was able to manifest the constant overabundance of energy that I have. That can be an affliction depending on where you're at. If you're a kid trying to sit still in class and you've got the energy to run 1,000 miles, your emotional body is going to have the shit kicked out of it when every time you respond naturally to that energy level, you're shut down by forces, by the man, by teachers, then by the principal, maybe then by the dean, who knows, maybe by the police, maybe by your parents, maybe every single one of those things puts a cage around that vent you found. They set up a thing, they try to funnel you into that chair and artificiate gravity to hold you down. Maybe put you in a weighted jacket to hold you down. Maybe when you can't hang with that anymore and your body's developing lesions, rejecting those constraints, maybe then you get put into a solitary form of school or a remedial school with a bunch of other lesioned, mangy inmates who are scratching at their weighted vests, eyeballing each other's overflowing Ritalin capsules, and trying not to die long enough to make it to adulthood. Boy, how dark is that? Anyway, didn't mean to fall down that well. I never had a weighted vest on. Again, I was doing a lot of self-policing. I was doing a lot of gritting. And that continued. Ooh. Thank goodness the energy didn't die. Thank goodness I've still got it. I'm so pleased that I do. I'm working on growing it right now. That means acknowledging that I came from somewhere. Tipping the hat to my younger self. In fact, giving my younger self a big hug and a high five. We made it. Anyway, the whole point. If I even want to come do it, maybe I won't. Oh yeah, we're running on the walk spot. See, I get worked up. I get all excited. And I get worked up. Whew. Oh boy, here we go. Collect the senses. The point I was trying to make was quite simply that anxiety worked for me. Anxiety provided me with a sense of my internal condition, provided me with a vector for establishing resolution of the shape and the disposition of my emotional body. And then it darkened the picture, and then it contrasted and detailed the picture, and it became such a work, such a thing over time, because this anxiety had multiple college educations worth of time. It had an entire education's worth of time to develop this picture that begged me from edge to edge, from border to border, to notice that I was sitting down and staring in one direction, and I can get up and pivot. I can get up and move. If all I want to do is look at the picture, I can keep looking. It'll keep evolving. But anxiety wanted to get my ass up. It tried to serve me, and I think it did. Dan Millman had a bit to write about. He said, the basic self is going to give a human being. The basic self of a human being is going to give that human being signals. The signals will grow. They're natural. They just happen. Nothing to judge. The basic self is just trying to avoid pain and obtain pleasure and happiness. So if you're in pain, particularly if you're ignoring it, or if the conditions cannot be resolved and you can't pivot, it's just naturally going to do what it does. And eventually, all the sheaths of your dullness and all the years of repeated behavior in the circuitry are going to have to contend with this deeper structure. Any story you tell yourself about where you're at, and I'm working 12 hours a day because I got to take care of the things and the duty and this is the way to do it, and I got to make the million, and now I've got the million, now I've got to get the yacht, and the yacht is the way to live because that's the story that I've been told, and it doesn't matter that my hair is falling out, and my cancer's growing, and my pancreas doesn't feel great, and my wife hates me, my kids don't think I'm cool. All those stories, basic self don't give a flying fuck about that. Basic self just says pain, ow, ah. You can't not feel it beneath a certain level. You can disassociate, but it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to die. The basic self doesn't die. The basic self is like the last thing to go. If you ignore your basic self for too long, you will die. Your body will literally shut down if you let anxiety get too far. Eventually, your body will reject the pills. Eventually, your liver will stop accepting the alcohol that you're putting into the little bitty container and sucking down like mama's milk. Or the stories that you're telling yourself about the stress you're experiencing and how worth it is to live the life that way because you're doing this great thing that seems so important. Even if you are Elon Musk, I don't know what he thinks about anxiety. I find his facial visage to be extremely placid. I wonder if he's about as far as you can get from the basic self, or if he employs it and there's a harmony. Ah! Woo! Flies like me right now. Point is, you can judge the tool, or you can say, thank you, my friend. I see you've been trying to do a job. I see that your purpose is to reach me when I won't reach me. I've got my back even deeper than I can ever have my back. And that voice told me, Justin, you can't live both stories. You can't live the story of way of the warrior and also the life of the grocer. Some people can do it. Some people, well, we talked about falling out the gate wetly and crying and blind into the world. A little naked baby with the disposition. You come in not completely tabula rasa. Maybe your disposition is that you are the griddle warrior. You can slice a pizza like a freaking ninja. It's what you were born to do. When you found it, you knew you were home. Maybe you didn't even get out of the pizza parlor into the artisanal shop. Maybe that wasn't your thing. Maybe your thing is quiet, out of the way part of town in this nice little chain, which, the people don't like the chain that much. It's not great to its employees, but you do you so well. You do you so well. You slice those pizzas, you box everything up, you put you check the toppings. Everybody seems to gravitate around the oven when you're fucking on deck. Your bosses always have like a questioning look in their eye when you're slicing it up. They're like, wow, you're so zen. Everything around you improves, and everybody is always oddly and in the back of their heads a bit curious at the end of the day why that shift went so well. The finest cuts ever. You live the way of the warrior, and you're the pizza ninja. Maybe that's you. What is my pizza ninja? I don't know. I tried my hand at it. I don't like cutting pizzas. I tried my hand at it. I didn't like managing pizza cutters. It paid better. 25 cents an hour better. Which was 25 cents above minimum wage, if I remember correctly. Whew. But it wasn't my thing. And that dissonance. That dissonance. I was trying to live both stories. Way of the warrior, pizza grocer. When it stopped being, when I came out the pizza parlor, because I needed to make a little more money, but I was still so committed to living that way. And I got this job at the grocery store, and I was so grateful. And I remained grateful, even when I was throwing internal tantrums later on down the line. Years later down the line is what I'm talking. God, the dissonance had me. And the energy, all that energy that I had, it was like ADHD. There was a little ping pong ball inside of me of pure nuclear fusion bursting to come out. Not everybody has that. It's not a quality of every warrior. Warriors can be different. Very different. I've got this ping pong ball. I've got this electric lightning bolt trying to find a ground, seeking desperately, screwballing around the skies, the twilights, the sunsets, the horizons, the storm clouds of my internal self, my being, my physicality as well. Clearly, the person that chooses and thrives in the environment of talking into a phone while holding one arm at hip level, like he's about to find out if it's his lucky day or not, and Clint Eastwood's laughing at him, while running, that guy, that's not everybody. That's not every warrior. But if you put that ping pong ball, and you take him out of here, and you put him in the zoo, and padlock him, I'm sorry, it's not a zoo. The grocery store is not a zoo. It's not a prison. It's a place where people can thrive. Many people do. And for everyone that does, there's 10 people who are doing well enough that their systems, which perhaps had different dispositions, can then achieve the safety required, that they can see and assess and orient themselves and pivot. How? Well, by seeking leadership, by developing their education and getting their resumes together, surrounding themselves with more and more harmonious social niches and mores, all that stuff. So, I'm not a padlocked monkey in a zoo. It just feels like it because I have that disposition. I'm going to use that terminology because that's how real it feels to me. That's not invalid. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, my feeling is not somebody else's feeling, just like my warrior is not just the same as everybody's warrior. And my warrior has the never-ending gobstropper mixed with flubber. Never-ending godflopster. Ever-bouncing godflopster. How about that? That's the name of my warrior. When I had the option to provide myself or invite someone to provide me with a name, a yoga name, which is something that if you walk the yogic path, you might be inclined to do. Paramahansa Yogananda named himself that. Yogananda means, I believe, divine joy through yoga. I forget what Paramahansa means. It might just be a prefix or something. I'm not sure. Yogananda is a very popular yoga name. A lot of people call themselves that. I knew a guy named Shivananda once. Most of, if not all of I came up under 3 teachers predominantly, and then 2 others who I resonated with more but didn't happen to have ashrams or formal training programs. They were just contractors, working out of gyms and stuff. Maitre Ma, shout out, who owned that property, Ananda Devaka Ma, the astrophysicist Yogini from Russia, I believe. Was it Yugoslavia? No, I think it was. I believe she said she was Russian. Who I rezzed with the most, but didn't have the gall to develop a relationship with. Beautiful singing voice. And then the one who was a mix of both, who I ended up jiving with the most at the time because she was the gentlest. And that was Gayatri. They named themselves, or they received their names, I forget exactly. Yeah, I remember Ananda Devaka Ma once said that it took her a long time to actually come into her own under that name. I don't even know what their real names. I don't even know what their names before those names were. Any of them. But Ananda Devaka Ma, she, what's this up here? I've been looking down at the road for a while now. What do we have here? Well. Kind of want to go down that way, though. I think I will. But I want to study what's free. And there's a free sign right there. Yeah, she said that she didn't like Devaka. That part of the name. She was like, well, it sounds like devil. So she was named. But I had the chance to name myself or receive a name. At the end of my training, I was invited to consider if I would want to do that, and I did. But I didn't incorporate. It's all baby stuff. I didn't incorporate the element of the name that I would have liked to, which, if I ever do get a superhero name, I'm probably going to put the word Vajra in it. Vajra, I believe, is a Sanskrit word that means a few different things. If I'm wrong, by the way, and you know, or have researched, even cursorily, and therefore more than me, the meanings of these words, you can leave it right down in the comments if you like. Or not. Vajra. Lightning. I believe that Vajra means lightning, which is another way of saying never. Never. Ever bouncing gobflopster. It's faster to say, but it addresses that. I took the name Jivan, which you can put an A on the end of it if you want to, or not. I chose not to because it felt too feminine. I enjoyed the more masculine presentation of that word. But that one means energy god. I guess. It's been years. They might have described it differently to me. But when they gave that name to me, I accepted it. But really, Vajra was a better word. I believe Vajra also means hero. So come on, lightning hero. That's the name of a fucking figure right there. It cuts a striking silhouette, if I don't mind tooting my own perspective horn here. If I ever do take on that name, Vajrananda, or, Vajra something or other, just Vajra. Of course, Vajra does sound a bit like vagina. Do I really care? No. Back then, I cared a bit more about the masculine and the feminine expression in my names, yogi or otherwise. Back then, I didn't quite as much like my own names. Now I like my names. All of them. Nothing wrong with the name Vajra. I guess I could always bastardize the language by hyphenating or hybridizing it with my Latin roots and go Vajro. That doesn't sound very good. Then again, these days, I haven't thought about realistically operating under a different name for a long time. I was kind of into it for a little while there. But at this point in time, I've noticed how naming the thing can take you away from the thing. Depends on the thing. And it depends on you and your orientation to the thing. Sometimes naming a thing allows you to put it somewhere where you can organize it, manage it, confront it, deal with it. Bring it into a higher resolution where it can be interacted with in a better way. Other times, it's best dealt with in the shadows, in the periphery, in the fog. If you happen to have a really good set of senses that reach into that dimension, I'm talking about emotional body senses, I'm talking about basic self senses, perhaps spiritual senses as well, to an extent. Some things are better interacted with when you can barely feel them. I'm learning that about my body right now, because in the learning to listen to my body and its various twitches and itches, rashes and gashes, the details, the whatevers, and yes, in that realm, low res does seem to be high res. Well, as I do that, I notice that I've done this before. I've done it before, haven't I? I've been here. Some of my best, most sacred dreams, most shamanic dreams have come after long periods of time in that place without knowing what I was doing and without being there proficiently, and therefore, weaving in and out, blithely, like a drunken fool in a bar fight wielding a club, when the calm night quietly, grinning, sassily unsheaths the blade and gets ready to end things in 2 seconds. I'm not that guy. I'm more the barstool wielder in this scenario, but certainly was then. But still, back in the old world doing these things, still, I found that I couldn't help but stumble ass backwards into shamanic spaces. Yeah. Special places. Yeah, it's the rocks. What's up? And so I found a sense of home recently doing the Wim Hof breathing first thing in the morning. and broaching the 3-minute barrier better and better recently. And just listening, there was a sense of homecoming in the twitches and in the coursing of the veins and the vibrating of the subtle muscles and the light cramps and barely perceptible tension of this calf or that toe. My body would shift, and because I'm breathing and because my heart's beating, my body's always in motion. Even down there, with very little air in the lungs, just holding it out like that, you still feel a heartbeat. And your blood is pumping, so your body really is vibrating all the time. It's a powerful thing. And it's something that you can notice or not notice. And I just noticed things. That's all that I'm trying to say. That's all that I'm trying to say. Hi there. And it serves me. Anyway, didn't think I really didn't know what was going to happen on the podcast today. But now that we're here, I feel rather accomplished and proud of myself. Yeah, the right hip is definitely the recent odd man out on the journey here. It just keeps saying hello. Hey, Justin, remember that we're not quite 1,000% healthy yet? Remember last run and the run before and the run before? Every run this month, pretty much. There's been the feeling of wear and granularity about the movement of the hip flexor. Whew. Whether opening or closing, a little bit of discomfort. Well, let's notice it. That doesn't really dovetail in an attractive way back into what I was talking about. So I have the option to double down or go back to what I was talking about. Or default to a neutral place where we can move and go anywhere. It's my time. It's my time to cross. That's right. You guessed it. We are going up the hill. Ooh. Huh. My senses were flooded with the smell of citronella a moment ago. It's real out here. Gotta do the work. Got to do the work. I did not practice Wim Hof breathing this morning. So there's a chance that when I get back, we'll take this episode and either tag an extra chronicle on it in which we breathcast, or I'm leaning toward making just a whole different episode. Just because it's the same day doesn't mean it has to be the same episode. This is my podcast. I can do it whichever way I want. Whew. Now remember, liberal-minded orientation, weaker boundaries, stronger, energetic, creative, exploratory senses. I find I'm going to err toward disarray. So my system is going to default to Sometimes this is a chronicle. Sometimes it's an episode. Just like so far in the podcast. It took me like 4 weeks of doing the podcast or more to begin making it the norm to title my episodes. I'm still not going to do it every time. But it does make it a little tiny bit easier to figure out where we're at in those episodes. Like, what did I cover? There's like a nice little tagline. I suppose that's what titles are for. And you know what? I still don't do descriptions. Never. I might have done a couple, but that's just not the depth to which I want to organize this creative thing that we're doing together. But we ought to organize it a little bit at least. We ought to meet it. Yesterday, I was in conversation with some folks. There was a lot of talk about the maddening responsibility that adulthood invites upon the unsuspecting host of the human being. It is a trial by fire. Living responsibly. Do you remember when we talked about old armor a moment ago? A mile or 5? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about. And we talked about pivoting. That's a big part of this podcast, talking about change. We even brought it into high resolution. I was talking about how I changed a little, and then how my life really wanted to show me a lot more. So anxiety came in, swooped in and said, "Hey, bro, sure, keep using the pliers on the molehill to make it into a mountain if you want to. But there's a fucking shovel right next to you. Let's get cracking." Thank you, anxiety, for that. So we talked about that a little bit. We talked about these things that point at the subject that I'm considering up for the next topic in our little walk, in our little ride along. The responsibility of learning, the resiliency that comes with that practice. That comes with that practice, man. People who run as much as I do, just as often as not,